come from somewhere, and maybe it's not the easiest to come by if it's not itemized correctly. So at least on paper, some options for both teams. And if nameplates were off, maybe I even favor V3. It's just nameplates on.
Oh yeah, I agree. This is how I come into most V3 drafts though. So initialize, whilst I'm optimistic, because I agree, there is multiple options for this team to play through. They also have the catalyst within that early game through Hetel. I mean, the quickening is such an important skirmishing tool and so impactful for getting roams towards his mid lane, as well as it can be vulnerable to some shenanigans from Swain. So they have opportunities in the early game. They have somewhat of an answer to some of the goals from Sengoku. It's whether or not they can put those in place.
And that has often been the issue with V3. It's been the execution, particularly come mid-game. And there you go. There's the AI. We kind of wonder whether it was that. I'm glad to see that our reasoning was correct. It's always one of those ones we go, yeah, this is great. This is working exactly. And then the AI is like, you guys are statistically very wrong.
You're garbage.
You're garbage. You're basic. J-Real's been getting to both of us. I swear, we've been playing a lot of like 5-man stacks in our spare time, should we say. And J-Real's ability when he's going for a solo kill to just yell out a wonderful line in a proper geezer accent is one of my favorite bits of gaming right now. It's a joy for all people.
Yeah, anybody watching at home, make sure to add him on the League client and ask to play games with him. I'm sure
he'll love that. Just spam him with friend requests. It's his favorite thing.
Anyway, we get to see we get to have a look at the early game now, because lanes have started, which means we get to talk a little bit about allocation. We just panned down to the spot side, and I think we expect Sivir Rakan to have a little bit of space in this lane. It's very difficult for Zeri. I always word this very specifically. It's very difficult for Zeri to aggress within the early game. I don't actually think she's a weak trader. I think she just really struggles with wave control, and she really struggles with getting usage out of her spells to trade in return. And this can make it very difficult, especially with a Yuumi, even having that kind of pseudo double ranged into the Rakan, still very difficult to be playing into. But instead we get to pan to mid side, which Yu-Gi-Oh's already been picked off quite a bit. And this comes straight into Corrupting Pot start, which I'm not a fan of on this match. 12.14 saw significant nerfs to healing through pots and Corrupting Pot specifically. And even though Doran's also saw nerfs to its effective HP, holds a lot more value now through extended laning, especially with Corrupting Pot. I think lost 125 HP out of its total value. Absolutely huge changes. And it means now that Yu-Gi-Oh already out of Corrupting Pot stacks and shoved under this turret. Very scary, and already a bit of a CS lead growing.
Exactly that. And this is Jet running the Comet as well for even more initial poke to try and take as much command of this lane early on as he can. That level up pretty critical there for Yu-Gi-Oh. And I think now he's going to have to be forced into back. Does run the spell, but does have the teleport. So shouldn't lose too much as yet. But I have to agree, it's not even 4 minutes and we're already burning every single one of those Corrupting Pot stacks. Goes back for a Control Ward and some boots. Changes it out to an Amp Tome to try and feel a little bit better about his options.
Yeah, this would be one of the areas where I'd slot in a Doran's ring here. A lot of people get very critical of slotting in Doran's items, especially after first base, but God, the value it would hold here, just in stabilizing this lane a little bit, I think should maybe be given away.
Just throwing that option out there, and I kind of agree. It's always been one of those ones where early backs and early itemization choices are often seen with a lot of, how do I put this, critique one way or another. Manage it politely, exactly. And the decision though has been made to go towards the Corrupting Pot, and I can kind of understand at this point, like, look, this is how I'm going to try and use, this is my one save me item build while I try and get towards some more constructive stuff. As I has to be a little afraid here, as there is in fact a very scary Vi in the back of there who quite in range, and Washidai by the skin of his teeth gets to crunch out of that one.
That was a very close dash there coming out. In return, obviously, exchange of power. Unica's towards this spot side, which means Dress Code and Hetel have to give up a little bit in this lane. And immediately something we've seen through the spot side specifically and through mid lane as well, but we've had a little bit more eyes on that. We've been able to notarize that. Is that Vitala's already built up a small CS lead within a matchup that I would probably favor towards Sivir Rakan. Now, obviously, Sivir with the rework, her scaling did change a little bit. She's very much more opted towards that 3-item spike, more of a late game AoE AD carry, kind of like the Zeri. So a little bit less space in lane to bully, but even so, I wouldn't expect to see a 10 CS lead 5 minutes into the game.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be evened up a little here, and and part of it is, it is ranged versus ranged and melee, which does hurt a little bit, and spell shield means Rakan sometimes feels a bit sad about going in, but you're right, like it's not necessarily what you expect, and Vital and NT just playing this one out well. They have been some of our better AD carries, and while of course Mass Swan still remains very upset that Honey is on the bench right now, Vital has been
I mean, me
a
too,
very
to be
valuable
honest.
member of the team.
Yeah, me too. But you can see the value that bringing in Vital has for the team. And whilst Honey is missed, was very much a stand-up player from last split on Sengoku. Once we hit playoffs, struggled a little bit. But nonetheless, Vital's done a very good job of picking up the slack from that player. Honey left a significant mark on the LJL through his historic value and his consistency throughout the league. And seeing Vital come into this team that were already doing very well and continue that kind of a win streak is very nice to see.
Keep our eyes on it, and they're keeping that tower damage coming straight through his dress code. Chunked out a little bit again. Play already down here, actually. So well played by the Sengoku bot lane to garner some advantages beyond perhaps what should have been expected here, as we were just discussing. And check in the inventory of Vi. Execution is calling first. We called for some healing reduction, and there it is.
Yeah, immediate pickup as well. I'm unsure about this Initialize. I don't know how to feel about this pickup. I'm very much a subscriber to, especially on a champion like the Vi, depending on the build you're opting into. We've seen some Gore Drinker. I'm more of a fan of an Eclipse, even though it is the riskier build. Or Divine Thunder even. Yeah, exactly. Love some penetration, me. I really would hope that with this execution calling, we're going to miss out on a couple of key spikes, especially because look at the first Drake here. It's Hex Take. There's a lot of intrinsic value in that dragon, not only in general, but also within this early game. And I really would have loved to see maybe earlier itemization towards that mythic come in so they can even try and contest this Drake, because they've already managed to build up a small lead within both lanes on this bot side.
Our eyes and see whether that continues to be a thing. Of course, still very early on. It's 200 gold apart right now, which is great news for V3, of course, and maybe we'll start to see a bit of a break point as the Herald is spawning in about 8 seconds. But we will see as it goes on anyway. And Dragon maybe being started here by V3, or at least a bit of a roam up occurring, as actually they're going to go and try and get in, but Vital with with a pretty good spark search. That's the word. I think lightning rush, and that's what's it called, the Kennen with the lightning rush. As Unica looking in onto Jet here potentially. I don't think he's going to be able to get any further, and even with the Warrior Trickster.
Yeah, I think as soon as Unica got that level 6, suddenly he's shown his face on map. He's on board to try and affect some of these lanes. He showed bot side. Now he's heading towards his top side as well. And I think it's a very scary combination to play into, right? The Wukong Nut combination. Ooh. He flashes forwards.
There's the Cyclone 1. They're going to keep going forwards. The massive use of that Emperor's Divide will not be enough. Hettel went over the wall with the flash there as well, but it's not going to matter. They get the kill onto the jungler. First blood comes through. That will mean Heralds to boot as well. And great little play there from V3, being proactive is what we needed to see. On the other side, though, plates will be trading dress code. Left alone under this tower, could be in a dangerous position, but with the ricochets, should have enough wave clear to prevent too much more going down.
Indeed. Bit of a disaster for once, as he gets very effectively picked off by V3. That secures him this Herald, and even though Paz is trying to move up, Trickster's going to get him out of there, and we can start to paint a picture as to where we think Unica's going to be looking for this Herald. And dashing over the wall there is such an over-eager play. I really feel like it's a bit disrespectful to V3 to be dashing into blind vision without knowing where anybody is, and then especially because we saw Hettel move up across the map beforehand.
Yeah, and they had vision. They've got that ward just behind the Raptor pit. It just doesn't work out that well, and Hettel now being traded back onto pretty heavily here with the burst fire. It does often feel more like full auto, let's be real. But either way, Zeri feeling very happy to be left alone with a few plates. It'll be the recall coming through, but interrupted very quickly. And that does mean probably another plate sure to fall afterwards here, because Vital's going to stick around.
Yeah, interesting to see even after that first blood that Sengoku managed to maintain a very small gold lead, and they also managed to pick up the Drake as well. And Hextech Drake kind of feels like cheating to me. It's got so much value in every game and to every champion. All of the other Drakes, whilst generally applicable, seem to have more power on a certain type of champion archetype. But hey, attack speed and CDR, everybody can use that.
Yeah, at least one or the other, right? Like, you very rarely get a champion that wants neither. Like, Yumi, ability haste, wonderful. Zeri, both. Azir, both, wonderful. You know, like...
Yeah.
You know, and it does feel a little bit sometimes like you're getting value one way or another, especially it does get knocked out of the hop there, but doesn't take too much damage. And this is supposed to be, again, something of a counter matchup where the Sejuani has got all-in options when Mini-Na's available, but thus far, it's been a relatively stable lane, and we're left with a game that is 500 gold in the favor of Sengoku, largely due to the plate advantage in bot side, but remember, Unica does have the Herald and inventory to try and even that up as the game goes on.
Indeed, indeed. And yeah, we can cast our eyes to this top lane for a little bit, because while Sejuani has a lot of space in this matchup, Washidai, for me, has been maybe the standout player for V3, somebody who's managed to hold space against a lot of the better top laners within the league, or I guess better teams. It's always just been this mid game, but
Vision of Empires there as well. Vital flashes, but he's got nowhere to go. Charmed afterwards. Second kill is there, and that means it'll be a dead cat afterwards, stuck straight in a bag and dumped in the river. Nowhere to go. NT dies. Dresco gets it. And that was a phenomenal little bit of timing play. Unica catches the bot lane and gets every single summoner from them.
Perfect. And on top of that, it's a I can't get the right terminology here. This is a big wave shoving in under this turret. Unica can very easily opt into dropping the Herald. Instead, he's going to get a reset coming in. And we can see how this plays out. And once again, it's just playing off of their vision. They have that vision to now. Vital wants to go clear the ward and gets very quickly punished by Unica. Unica's been on point in this game.
He really has, and that's now 2 matches in a row where the Wukong aggressive, proactive plays have been very successful. V3 stand 3-0. A lot of that early pressure from the Wukong working out well. Of course, the gold is still relatively close. Again, we talked about the fact that Sengoku just are better at the fundamentals and clicking on minions. But this game is playable from V3, which in some ways is a bit of a shock considering the discrepancy in literally inverted score lines here. V3 were the team with the longest loss streak in League of Legends history only a few weeks ago.
And I'm wondering whether or not this is a mix of flubs coming out, obviously, from Sengoku with their positioning, but also the weaknesses of Sengoku's early draft. This is something I draw a lot of criticism towards with Yuumi, because Yuumi has to be played a certain way to be piloted properly in the early game, and it isn't actually just sitting on your AD carry all the time. It's finding timers to get onto once, to get vision on map, to help support some of the aggressive plays this team wants to do. As he's now rotating towards his top side, Herald gets dropped down. I don't think there's really going to be any fight here available. So yeah, it's up to NT really to take some more proactive choices to get on map and set up some vision. We can see that's actually been largely extended towards his boss side, but it's a little bit late at this point.
And that is true. And also, call out the summoner choices. That's exhaust heal. Those are very defensive choices from Yuumi. This is not ignite in place of the heal, right? Which is often what you want to see if you want those really early aggressive plays from Yuumi. And that's definitely been a decision made. And it's come back to bite them just a little bit. They get plates in the top side as well onto Washidai now, who has been really critical in that champion, even if perhaps it wasn't the place I was at least expecting to see the Herald dropped. Opportunistically done so, Washidai gets more of an advantage into this Sejuani early on, and Kempunk Chainsword now completed for once. Has decided to go towards that as a full completed item, not leaving it on the Executioner's Calling or anything. Another item to keep an eye on, of course, is the Imperial Mandate build from Swain, looking to set up for that Sivir to do even more work.
There's so much itemization coming in here all at once that I think we're going to take our turns to talk about it all. And the big one for me is obviously this Imperial Mandate. We'll talk about the Azir's mythic choice in just a second. And the biggest strength of Imperial Mandate is it gives you that a little bit of an earlier spike towards Rylai's second, and combining with the amount of access that Mandate gives for the rest of your team to do damage, because Swain, especially with Rylai's, just procs that item constantly. It means that, yeah, we're going to be looking for a bit of an earlier curve coming out from this Swain within the mid lane.
And you can see relatively even between the Azir and the Zeri and their oppositions in the Swain and the Sivir. The advantage right now does feel to be in the top jungle, at least initially for V3. We'll see whether Sengoku can do what Sengoku have managed to do pretty consistently across this split, particularly the latter half, which has come back with some exquisite team fighting, as Unica might be having to do that very shortly, as Once is hiding around in a bush here, and Heddle needs to be a little bit afraid. Throws down the ward and will spot out what's going on, and Jet's going to get first rotation out of the mid as well.
Yeah, so whilst we see Jet sitting on this mythic now, has opted into the crown. I don't know if I'm going to get to talk about this, because the dance has begun around Drake. They're trying to look for this fight, but Yu-Gi-Oh's managed to clear the way. There's a 4v4.
And he's got heal as well to make sure he's even more defensible.
TP.
Teleports coming through, taken by the Unica, and now the fight can start commencing. Not the best final chapter ever. Do get the Glacial Prison though, and Yu-Gi-Oh's got nowhere to go. Dies, follows after with the cease and desist into that permafrost, and they are on ice. Double kill to Vital Zeri. Massive win for Sengoku at the end of it.
Yeah, they had that TP. Oh, they didn't even have the TP advantage. Washidai chose not to TP down in return, and that was my big flub for that fight there. Now we get to see Sengoku. Oh no, we do get the replay. That's good. And yeah, the thing to note here is this TP. So V3, I think very smartly, they choose to opt into the Drake, but they're taking this Drake to run away afterwards. The big mistake is that when this TP is done, when Sengoku commits to, okay, no matter what, we're going to be fighting after this, V3 need to do that in return. Because actually you can see, especially with once dashing forward into the pit there, they're temporarily down in fighting power, but that number advantage kicks in, Paz's engage kicks in, and they get to chase down, they get to find a couple of kills in turn, and now that gold lead has been neutralized.
Has indeed, and the goal goes into a deadly person's inventory as well. Second item now complete for Vital, who's gone towards the Hurricane second here as well, to make sure it can hit as many people as possible. Not a build path I'm used to seeing on Zeri. It used to be more of a thing when the Titanic Hydra build was more in favor, but even so, there it is in. And it does mean that Sengoku Gaming do what Sengoku do, which is, as we said, win a few of those mid-game team fights.
Indeed, yeah. I think the Runan specifically is actually quite a good answer, because he knows that he's got 3-4 players of V3 who are going to be just running towards him. So a lot of AoE damage can be found with that itemization. We get to cast towards mid lane as Herald's being, looks like contested by both teams. I do want to talk about this crown quickly, because, I mean, look at the myriad of tools from V3 to disrupt and get rid of crown earlier on a fight, especially if they're playing through lanes. Obviously, the Sivir AoE comes in, but on top of that, Yu-Gi-Oh and Washidai both having priority. Oh, it's a big pick off.
They're going to try and do it. Remember, he's still got a stopwatch, so he's a lot more tanky than you think he is. There's a turnaround. Quickness comes through. Will be turned around with the Emperor's Divide, but Yu-Gi-Oh survives for now, taken solo. Once goes in, doesn't get the kill. Swain healing is just too strong. Dress code, though, forced away as Vital. Will still find the kill somehow, some way. Once is going to come back on the side. Glacial Prison lands his Ultra Shot Laser. Too straight for Vital, and despite what looked like a fantastic saving Private Swain, they lose 2 for it as Once is in the enemy base. I don't know whether he really wants this. He's just trying to disrupt as many backs as he can. Now he needs to try and work his way out, but massive win for Sengoku Gaming, despite what looked to be a little bit of a good turnaround.
Yeah, it's crazy seeing how Sengoku's team fight damage is already forming only 2 items into the game. I think we can definitely identify that Azir Zeri is just a 3-item, a 4-item projection for how team fights could be successful. But I think it's just playing through this Yuumi and getting rid of some of the key tools that V3 have to turn around fights out to the fight early. So quickly, it's that quickening, obviously, that immediately broken apart by that Emperor's Divide. On top of that, Yu-Gi-Oh gets taken out of the fight right at the start, and it means that the rest of V3 are basically playing catch-up. And wow, look at that. I think that's red buff combined with the Yuumi Q to pick that off.
Yeah. And Ultra Laser afterwards is just on the edge of these things, and like, Washidai not getting the stun of Once on the tower, so he gets out alive. That kind of small discrepancy really hurts, and suddenly, from a game that looked pretty okay for V3, they're now facing down a 4-item Zeri who can seemingly do no wrong.
It's crazy seeing how Sengoku navigates some of these fights, because it is, as you mentioned, it's on the limit of some of these hitboxes and some of these plays. They are very much playing to the edge of each champion's capabilities, and when that comes together in tandem, even on 1-item Azir and 2-item Zeri, they push out so much damage.
It really does, and despite what felt like some good plays from V3 earlier, how many times have we said that? It's still feeling now like Sengoku well and truly in a good position in this game. 50 seconds until what will be the final Drake spawn, and that was not stolen. No, I got very worried there.
Oh dear. Yep, the blue buff is safe for now. The dragon, maybe not, as Sengoku immediately after finding a successful fight. Look at the command they've taken over this spot side jungle. Vision laid out, not only over every entry point, but deep as well. And as long as they can get priority on this mid wave, which will be very difficult considering the Herald has dropped, they can have priority on every lane around this Drake before it spawns, which is paramount to finding a successful fight for Once, who is, remember, pretty split in goals between the remaining members. He's meant for disruption. He's meant for picking off an individual member, whereas Vital and Jet are very much more focused on extended fighting and AoE damage.
Does seem to be that way either way. Herald dropped, and split purposes or not, it's still going to be Sengoku Gaming who managed to retain control of the map here and get onto this second Drake of their own. That will be a big pickup for them in a lot of ways. Of course, 6% extra damage in general is great news for this team. And there's the Frozen Heart completed for Sejuani to boot, and left with a map state that is very much favoring Sengoku Gaming, having pried open that mid lane earlier on. Don't want to let go of that control anytime soon.
It seems like Sengoku just taking a grasp of this game and not really letting go, repeatedly shoving in these waves to try and reduce the impact the Unica's having on the map, because the jungle camp's repeatedly taken away from him and actually found himself now in a camp deficit, which is crazy when we think about how impactful he was within the early game. Within the first 15 minutes, it seems like V3 is cursed to have to deal with this same problem.
Washida going to get stunned in place. Paz charges forward with the Arctic Assault. Will get a Permafrost. Vital thinking to come and spark surge his way forward. He's going to get the Ignite afterwards as well, because the Mini-Nars come through, and Paz doing exactly what they're supposed to do. Ultra Shock Laser, Spark Surge. Vital gets a fifth.
Wow, another kill getting handed over. 5 and 1 now, 650 gold bounty. It's, oh yeah, all of them. That's completely crazy. And unfortunately, we can't get to ask to see the gold, but we definitely know Vital is leading at the moment. I already picked up only 21 minutes into the game. This is really when the Zeri starts to spike, and in combination with Jet now being on that Nash's, there is so much DPS coming out from this team.
Paz, though, is a little overshoved here. Doesn't have the flash. Did have the Arctic Assault to get out of danger, though, in dress code. Probably doesn't want to be there. Emperor's Divide, but is going to be just out of range of the wall. But a flash! Cease! Desist! And maybe that should be cease and decease instead, as you'll find a very dead Sivir in the mid lane.
And it seems like that's unfortunate for Sengoku a little bit, because I did encounter that little Azir bug there. So unable to fully get the Emperor's Divide off. But they pick up the kill in return, and just that one kill leads straight into the Baron kill. It's coming off the back of Sengoku. Look at the vision line. Once again, complete in control of where they need to be on the map. And Jet now trying to cause a little bit of disruption so that they can continue on this Baron.
Unic is going to be around, going to maybe just get into the back end and try for a smite! Take him, but it's by the mid laner of all people. They'll get the kill onto the jungle afterwards, and that's why he couldn't smite.
Vital.
Unfortunately, UJ taking a lot of damage taken down. The exhaust does not mean a damn thing. Vital gets that one, and finally they'll try and run away. Jet shuffles his way forward to secure another, while Vital chases down the other. Dress code has respawned, but I wonder whether Sengoku might just try and shove an end right now. They are not waiting on this game.
They want it. They want it badly as well. TP comes in, and from a firm grasp that V3 had on the game, they slip up just one fight within that mid game, and they immediately take a control of this game. Now we do see respawns coming in under 5 seconds. Jet forces on yours.
Quite deep here. Vital needs to be a little bit afraid. Will Spark Surge away. Does get double knocked up into the quickness. Dresco trying to trade out best he can. Just not quite enough damage. The ricochet's coming through. One final one would do it. Does not quite happen because the Yuumi heal comes through. Zoomies are there. What about a teleport and Wash though? Where does he teleport to is the question though. Trying to get as deep as they can. Paz chunked up, chunked down. Washidai is there. We'll get an auto in. There is the kill. And the Baron buff is being turned around as Vital. Trying to trade out away from the Ultra Shock Laser. He must go. Has a blast cone to get out. He is the surviving member alongside Once. They know where he is with the far side alteration. We'll have another Spark Surge available shortly, but watch today. Over the wall he goes, looking to keep hopping. Bounces on top of the Krugs, and it's much like Mario. He's going to dump on some heads. Gets a hold of that one. There's the kill. Only one survives, and V3 hold on.
So many shutdowns picked up by V3 there. Actually, a lot of the gold going on to Washidai, which means that wouldn't be surprised to see him reset and immediately pick up another item. Now, the real question is how much time does this buy for V3? How much space does it give them away? As we get to see the replay here, and it seems like a little bit of miscommunication from Sengoku meant that they weren't really sure what their goals were relying for. Jet's looking for the fight. The rest of the team are trying to knock down these turrets.
Yeah, he takes a turret shot there as well, or the fountain laser even. So Jet has to use his gold, and then Vital stepping forward to try and play with some food as well. And then Hettel, what an incredible engage there to make sure this is a retreat from Sengoku now.
Yeah, he wanted it really badly, and fantastic that they had the TP available to run down the remaining members of Sengoku. It's surprising that Jet even lived this long, to be honest, with all of those ricochets coming in from Sivir, but eventually they all get picked down. And actually, it's something I never really noticed in that fight, but Vital just pumping out obscene amount of damage on the tail end there.
Yeah, doing his very best to make sure the rest of V3 couldn't chase after. It's still not enough to keep him out, and the double shutdowns come through. I think we're both around 700 gold at that point, so a lot of gold in his inventory, and it is a full Randuin's he goes back and buys.
Holy moly. Yep. And a lot of value within this game because not only is he facing some crew members, also that attack speed reduction going to be... Actually, does it even give attack speed reduction anymore? Is that still a thing? I feel like I should probably know that.
Mail probably does that, I think, so I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I'll double check on that one, so it will be the passive from that one. I believe it does, but I'm now wondering myself. Wow, the full stats on Randuin's.
It's interesting to see that Sengoku have just kept up the pressure. They understand the flub that they made, but they know that they're still in gold lead. And with Baron remaining on one member, as it just ticks off now, they managed to pick up that tier 2 within the bot side, and they look straight towards Soul Point as well. Infernal Soul, very scary to play into, especially because Sengoku are on blue side, which means the opportunity for Unica to steal these drakes is very limited.
It's pretty hard to get on in there, especially without that option. There it goes down, and that means if you do get towards that soul, Zeri with an Ultra Shock laser that's already hitting as hard as it does will hit just that bit harder, empowered by said soul. So let's do what they can. And Sivir at 2.5 items, desperately trying to catch up to the 4 that Vital has right now. It's a difficult position to be in, and of course with that Titanic complete as well, surprisingly tanky with an Immortal Shield Bow on top of it all.
Yeah, it's scary playing into this kind of hybrid build, I guess, because they are playing off a few key engage tools and having that little bit of a HP buffer, especially with durability patch. I'm going to talk about this patch for years. Means that there's just a little bit more space for Vital to go. Okay, I'm going to ghost away here and be able to live out on a slither. Then NT will jump on me and I'll heal back slowly over time. And yeah, very scary.
Absolutely is, and we'll see exactly how scary it is as the game goes on. I mean, already we've seen exactly how scary it is, but whether it will continue to be as terrifying as it was earlier on in the game, unless there's ways for V3 to really shut down Vital consistently, it's going to get increasingly difficult to deal with this one. And final outer tower falls down on the top side, and it is really just the base remaining for V3, and it's already partly in shambles. There's a Nexus turret already down to about 2/3 HP.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see how Sengoku are trying to siege up this base now, I guess we can say, because they can't create the same kind of extension of vision, because that can be very easily cleared out by every remaining member of V3, which means they're having to play in fog quite a lot, and they're having to play inside the own vision cutoff points from V3, and that suddenly creates very scary situations, because there's no real, outside of Paz, there's no tank on this member. They're playing off extended fighting, they're playing off the heals on the Yumi, and it means that, especially considering how on point Unica was with his pickoffs within the early game, we're once again in a similar position where vision is lowered, where he can look to combine with Hotel, use the quickening, use the cyclone to pick up an individual member of Sengoku. And now that we're 20 minutes into the game, a single kill can very much easily lead into turrets in return with bounties online, potentially the Baron, as we're under a minute now, on top of maybe trying to find a successful fight and pushing off further with that.
We'll see whether they can do their best to hold on to that Baron. There goes the inhibitor again just after it respawned. And hear ye. Sivir has hit 3 items, but you're looking on the other side and there's a few more available for Sengoku Gaming. It's like, hooray, we've got 3 items, but oh, what is it coming at the cost of? Quite a lot, it turns out. And they've got to be able to do their best to hold on. I just don't know whether they can even think to contest this Baron. In fact, they might just 2-man it, Azir over the wall alongside the Vida tank, and that should just be a pretty swift take on the Baron unless Vital gets caught out here in rotation.
Yeah, it looks like they're actually disconnected from it again. Oh my god. And immediately they'll be calling the Baron right now. Baron's the next objective, with Vital being so strong at the moment. That's probably going to get shredded very, very quickly. And we're looking at now how Sengoku can try and close out this game. Unlocking these next inhibitors can be so important to restricting how V3 can try and fight in this. And my eyes are making sure that they get these waves set up appropriately, so that when they siege, they can siege quickly and look to get these inhibs earlier to then play off Soul, which is spawning in just under a minute and a half now.
Oh, gotta keep our eyes on it. And that was some ugly damage coming out there. You know that meme of like the little pink the little pink blob in the iron box? Like, okay, maybe I'll try going outside this time. Immediately punched by Vital. It's like, I'm my face again. It's like, that was unholy amounts of damage, as once now beginning to continue.
Oh my god.
Taking control of the vision, as Washidai will try and play Bouncer, but he's a mini Gnar and long way off Mega, so he needs to be a little afraid here as Vital throws down an Ultra Shock laser again. And The roses bloom, courtesy of some withering, but Unica's going to go in anyway. Vital flashing out, though, and
Oh, no.
goodbye to the Monkey King, dead already, looking for a shuffle, and that will be the game. There's no way this can be turned around. Dresscode at 20% HP has nothing he can say about it. Yujia went golden, but not for long. It's looking like a last place finish for V3 in terms of this game as well. The Ultrasonic Laser gets him on the blast cone, and Vital proves exactly why Zeri is so damn potent. You can nerf her as much as you like, so she can hit like that. There is nothing to be done. Sengoku Gaming moved to 17-2.
Just like that, it seems like Sengoku really